big cycling industry story out of last week was that Campagnolo, and I'm going to try my hardest to pronounce Campagnolo properly through the whole video, I promise, just laid off 40% of their staff. Absolutely devastating. 120 people. Just nobody ever wants to read about that, experience that. I'm sure that was pretty hard. It reminds me of that book by Brian Tracy about eating your frogs. I think they've all done what had to be done. But for anyone my generation growing up, this seems like a very familiar story, not in cycling, but if you go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, Apple Computer were going through a very similar thing. Late 90s, they were down and out. Everyone had written them off. They were irrelevant, overpriced, had no good product. They had down to like 2% market share. They had just a tiny amount of really loyal fans who knew that deep down inside it was a superior product at doing certain tasks, but it needed to break out of that mold. And then they had like the iBook and the iMac and things, but it wasn't until 2001 when they launched the iPod that they had that big phoenix from the flame moment. And this is what it feels like to me that Campagnolo is going through at the moment. You see, back then, Apple didn't invent anything new. They took existing technology and made it user-friendly. They took that annoying MP3 player and DVD players that you had to plug in and wait hours for all your tunes to upload. And then when you wanted to try and play the music track, you couldn't find the track that you wanted to do. They solved the user interface. They made it accessible. And their first attempt at it was so expensive. It got loads of criticism. Brilliant product. Who the hell is going to buy that? And then for anyone my generation, you probably saw occasionally the odd iPod being used on the train or whatever. It wasn't until the iPod mini came out in 2004, which I'm pretty sure if anyone around my age is listening, you probably had one. I know I had, and I had the iPod Nano, the Works, all the way up until the iPhone. It was just a big part of that shift where Apple had kind of unlocked the user interface. It took them a long time to get there. Now, coming back to Campagnolo, I think that is what we are seeing here, because the frustrations of electronic and wireless group sets are starting to be properly solved. If you think the Shimano shifter, they never really got the hang of, where to put buttons. They're always trying to replicate where the buttons used to be when we had mechanical shifting to try and make it feel familiar. Didn't really make sense. And then they made them reprogrammable. But you could reprogram your Shimano shifter to, well, essentially that's that classic practical joke. You reprogram it to make every single button you press, make it a harder gear. That's not a good user interface. SRAM came along and they've done a great job with SRAM Access. Their new lever bodies especially are ergonomically, fantastic. But again, just one big button here. And I really feel like this is something that Campagnolo is really getting right. They've put all the buttons exactly where you want them to. And not just that, but the click and the amount of effort it takes to press them is correct. You can access things from around the handlebar. It feels like they've really thought about sort of the button generation as opposed to trying to recreate the manual shift generation. They've built other things in as well. There's no pairing. You just put everything you need together in the same sort of area and it just pairs. But I think the biggest thing is that they started to solve the question, all the anxieties and the concerns that we have are starting to be solved. So their batteries are now IP69K waterproof. That is pressure washing to like 100 PSI standard. That's absolutely insane. So you could put this on the top of your BMW M5 and zoom down the German Autobahn and it's going to be fine. They've solved the whole battery charging issues where this is all it takes to charge your battery. You don't have to remove it. Just one little lightweight magnetic charger. Plug this into any power source you want. It's a shame that this isn't USB-C, but hey, we'll get there. And that's it. You can charge this however you want. If you're going on a big multi-day trip, that is all you're carrying with you outside of what you're already carrying with you to charge your phone and whatever it is. That's brilliant. Compare that to what SRAM have been offering us with this. I mean, who's putting that in their saddlebag? Come on. And then you would have thought that Shimano learnt their lesson, but then Shimano brought us this. That's not a great solution. And before that, of course, we had this epic cable. I mean, no one's taking that. I mean, thank God for AliExpress and this little invention, eh? I think you're starting to see, hopefully, what I'm trying to say here, that Campagnolo have taken a step back and they've been listening to all the concerns and they've been trying to improve them. Again, things like front mech shift. The motor on this is so powerful, I swear to God, you can't bodge a shift. Probably one of the most powerful front mechs I've come across. your front mech is shifting whether you like it or not. The other anxieties that we have are things like creaking bottom brackets and compatibility with frames. Well, they solved all that. They put the bearings actually on the crankset. They made the turf joint in between. They've made, the bottom bracket situation work because it can deal with the compliance of the frame, or rather the inconsistencies and tolerances of the frame. They've solved an awful lot of the problems. Their biggest problem is that it's crazy expensive, and they are desperately needing their iPod mini moment to democratize it, essentially. I think it's one of those situations where I know that I would desire it, and I'm pretty sure, actually, show of hands, get down in the comments, if a magic genie came up and said, hey, you got a dream bike, what group set are you fitting? Would you still choose Campagnolo Super Record, or would you choose one of the others? I think I would go, money no object, I would choose the Campagnolo Super Record. In exactly the same way as back in 2001, if someone said, hey, have any MP3 player you want, to say, well, I want an iPod. So for me, yeah, I'm really devastated for all those people that have lost their jobs. That's incredibly sad. But at the same time, I'm optimistic that Campagnolo have great heritage. They've got great design. They've got a great product. And it looks like they are making some big moves to try and turn the ship around. With that all said, what's your thoughts on this situation? Please get down in the comments. This is a really interesting one, I think, and I can't wait to hear what you guys have got to say. All right, thanks for watching. Let's discuss it in the comments. Cheers.